talk
comedy.
about comedy on this here live stream, whatever this is. And the reason comedy is so incredible, I think it's the best art form in that, unlike music, maybe some music will do this. I will say, like a Rage Against the Machine will do this, but not in the style of comedy. Um, Unlike art, as in mixed media like paintings and everything outside the scope of maybe a Banksy. And it's very rare. That's, I think, what I'm getting at. It's more rare for the other art forms to explicitly express things that are taboo in culture and do it in a way where I don't want to call it inclusive, but comedy does it in a way where it's approachable. So many taboo things become much more approachable, and great comedians, and I think you've mentioned this before too, great comedians do it in either unexpected way. You're walking along the path and you expect to see the house, and it turns out to be, a clown car pulling up with 40 clowns getting out, whatever the unexpected thing is. Or it's the most obvious thing. You're walking down a path and it's things that you noticed that maybe the majority of people notice, but this one comic can shine a light on it that's so different, that's so unique that it's hard. I really think of Dave Chappelle nowadays. Like Dave's
Or
past,
Trevor Noah. Trevor Noah's another
yes,
one who points out those things that you're like, how did I not think of that? Or man, that's insightful. Like, of course, that's that thing. Yeah,
Carlin was amazing at doing that, and he interwove the taboo topic with the most obvious. You know what I mean? That's what made him such an epic philosopher almost. And that's
yeah,
truly what a good comic is, right? They're just
yeah.
philosophers. And then there's the other end
Do
of
you
the
have
spectrum.
it? Do you have something else? Is there a
There's
difference? Is there an opposite side to that coin?
and you know what bugs me right now? Like what's
I
eating
just
away.
realized I look like an Oompa Loompa, by the way. I don't know how I got this orange.
Did you go tan?
Anyway.
You yourself tan?
What?
I don't know.
No,
You do, don't you?
I
The only
do.
thing I tan is my teeth with cigarettes.
Ah.
um, so the thing that really eats me alive while about to be talking about this, we do it all the time, but now since that Cat Williams interview, and we'll get to Cat Williams in a second, but Cat kept making mention, like, if you don't play the game, like considering Phase on Love. He's like, if you ain't touring, if you ain't got specials on Netflix, who gives you the microphone to speak on real comics, like what real comics are doing? And that's exactly what we do. We're like, listen,
Yeah.
we go to talk about it. But I think it's important for the critiques, the criticism. I think it's important for comedy to be approachable in the sense that you gotta have some kind of take on, you know what I mean? Like if comedy existed in that vacuum and people just were like, oh,
Right.
it's whatever, then it wouldn't be good nor bad. Um, and the most polarizing thing is, I don't know if you remember Jim Breuer. Some of these kids might not. My demographic definitely remembers Jim Breuer. I think his big break was Half Baked, right?
I would say half baked, but I mean, really, what catapulted him was Saturday Night Live. Like,
Oh
I
yeah,
mean,
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Sorry.
nobody really got him. He just happened to be in a lot of good skits with possibly the greatest cast that has ever existed during his tenure. As far back as Farley and David Spade, Norm Macdonald. I mean, Chris Kattan. It's funny how many of these people have gone uh, right or gone weird or gone whatever. But yes, Jim Breuer got famous with Goat Boy
Yep.
on Saturday Night Live, and I mean, he was a part of a lot of good skits. I would say is his biggest thing.
Yeah, I think you're correct. I think there's something's got to be said about Half Baked because that was such a cultural phenomenon when that happened. Pot was still highly illegal. It seemed like a very subversive movie, a very counterculture, um, for whatever you could say. I
As
forget.
silly as it was, but yeah.
Yeah. Um. So now, if you're wondering what Jim Brewer's up to, I'm gonna
Let's have
show
a
you.
look see.
Yeah. I'm not happy about this. Uh, and let me premise this by saying Jim Brewer is a big Trump guy. He's a big I don't really know what happened to him. I honestly don't. This comedy special I'm about to play for you is called Country Boy Will Survive. Did you ever take Jim Breuer as like a good old country boy?
If you consider Greenwich Village and Soho, New York City as country boy, then yes, absolutely, a country boy can survive or will survive, depending on which Hank Williams you're referencing at the time.
Country
Or
Boy Will Survive is what this one is
Merle
called.
Haggard. Damn it! Now,
I
now I'm not remembering.
I couldn't tell you, but when I first started watching this and I got 3 minutes in, I had to pause it and go look up. Oh, I thought he was from New York. Maybe he's like from down south, or that's where his roots are. And then I looked it up, and he's from like a town of like 50,000 on Long Island. And I was like, what is
Yeah,
this like? Is this the best pandering we've ever seen? Is this dude? Because if you watch his special and you happen to click outside of the box, like outside of trying to fast forward or rewind, it brings you right to his Shopify. It's happened to me about 6 times. And I was like, stop. I don't want a Jim Brewer t shirt. I don't. I'm just trying to do something in YouTube, and it's got 1 million views. And I'll also preface it by saying that this video has so many ads. I've never seen so many, and I watch a lot of YouTube. This, you cannot start or stop it without ads. So let's see if this works without 4 ads popping up. But this is Jim Breuer. Country Boy Will Survive. Yeehaw! I'm surprised he didn't have overalls, a slick of grass, and a straw hat. This motherfucker pandering to everybody. He makes me so mad.
here we go.
No! 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 No!
Okay, okay, settle down, settle down.
No, because
Breathe,
I just hit
breathe.
some. No, I can't breathe. You don't know how many things this commercial has. And look, if I even try to fast forward, it goes view products. I'm so pissed. I'm so pissed. I just told you.
Play any of it. It really
No!
doesn't matter.
No, it does matter. Look, view products. Everywhere I touch, it says view products.
Google him later for those who like. I don't believe what you're saying because I don't like that you made fun of Donald Trump. And Trump is a sexist and he shouldn't even bring up his name to divide the country. And I don't like this guy. He did nothing for Mappy. You're a good human being. I love you. But you got to stop believing that. Those are voodoo words. Scientists, specialists, experts. Everyone just goes, oh my God, they're going to tell everyone.
Okay, that's enough. Wow.
No, you're gonna laugh.
Then you're on Facebook. I'll listen to the experts, not the jackasses that think for themselves.
Yeah, I've seen all
For
this.
themselves.
Some of us went to college. That's why I gotta get away.
Hilarious.
Oh my God, I thought hitting pause was going to bring me. Hold on, I just want to show you. Can you see right there? If you
Yes,
try to
yes.
skip around, do you know what that says? Shop
products.
products.
Oh,
Or yeah,
shop.
no, you're right. View products, which I'm on YouTube a lot. I'm looking up stuff. I'm checking things out. I ain't seen that before.
I've never seen that. Just so you know.
That is so weird, because that is exactly like if you, like I was just trying to make sure it was lined up, trying to hit play. I was not kidding when before I played that, I said there were so many times where I would touch something and it would just bring me to the internet to a shop where it said buy, it was Jim Brewer's t-shirt. And it was like, buy his t-shirt. This dude is pandering to the right audience. Like I did Russell Brand. These people are pandering to suckers, because that's all it is. Like he figured his golden cash cow is these suckers who will just eat anything up. And the worst part is that bit right there. The reason why it was so specific, I played that bit because that is so potentially funny. It came off very cringe, like if that's agreeable, right? Very cringe. Like those are voodoo words, scientist, and like I went to college. There's nothing clever about it. This is the obvious comedy stuff. There's nothing clever. There's nothing really funny. There's nothing unexpected. There's just nothing to that. He's just kind of fucking saying how he feels.
But that is the epitome of conservative comedy. It has been that way for the last 15 years.
That's so true.
The joke is either, they only have two modes. The joke is either that you are, because satire does not exist in conservative comedy. Either you're pointing out what you don't agree with, which is what he was doing there,
Yep.
or you you try to have a satirical point about something that you're trying to remind, from a conservative standpoint, you're trying to remind the audience of why it should be funny to you what they are doing. Short of that, it's just loud gestures and the biggest joke, which you'll hear from Steven Crowder, Jeff Dunham, all of these people who are landmines these days, is, oh, that's going to get a comment on Media Matters. Oh, that's going to really upset the liberals. Oh, I bet there are some hippies crying in a drum circle right now. Like, that is the only things that they have are inflammatory language and then just really slapstick dumb shit that they accuse the left of doing. But nobody holds a card to I mean, if you want to say left politic comedians, I mean, really, the left political comedy scene has only existed since what, 20 years ago when Jon Stewart like made it a thing.
Brought it to the mainstream.
Yeah, I mean, Carlin, we were talking about Carlin before. Carlin pointed out the ridiculousness of politics in general, or talked about the ridiculousness of being pro-life and somehow still capital punishment. Like that contrast, that dichotomy is silly to look at on its face. It would be just as silly talking about it from a Catholic perspective, or the silliness, maybe, if you want to go towards religion, which you could always just, again, along with these lines, the silliness of the origin story of Catholicism or Christianity and the origin story of Mormonism. So, like, and nobody finds a good Mormon joke funnier than a Mormon. And if you're a decent Catholic or a decent religious person of any stripe, you should be able to take that and be like, I see how silly that is. I see how funny that can be to some people. What conservative comedy will do with anything that is not in their stratosphere or something that they agree with, they don't point out the absurdity. They're pointing out exactly what they hate about it, and they mean it. Most comedians who are good comedians are not saying, I hate this thing, so I'm going to make fun of it, which is where people like Dave Chappelle got in trouble for saying, I'm Team Turf, and here's why it's not great to be trans, or, why I don't like these people coming at me. He got in trouble because he blurred the line a little bit. Where he got a lot of people back is saying, at the very end of it, I'll get off your back if you admit that Hannah Gadsby is not funny. Like, even somebody who like didn't agree with half of what he said, I got that joke and I agreed with that joke. So it's a matter of just you're either, with conservative comedy, you're all in it or you're not at all. They don't have time for you to have any nuance. It's the lowest common denominator. It's the lowest hanging fruit. It's the quick shots, and they mean it from their heart. They're not saying it to be funny. They're saying it to be shitty.
Oh, and there's a lot of fill too. You mentioned earlier, it's almost like that 80s prop comedy. Breuer's Goat Boy impression comes out every other not punchline, but every other sentence of the story, and it's very much just filler to kind of elevate and make bigger the punch that really wasn't there. You know what I mean? He does that a lot in this. It's almost unbearable when that was like a, I don't want to say beloved, but that was like the endearing thing. That was what people kept going to Brewer for, like do the goat boy, do the goat boy. And now it's just like not goat boy, but those sounds through the whole thing to kind of make an exclamation point on that. And what really irritates me is like him, like if he just took a little bit of time, just a little bit, and wrote and didn't really just try to like pander and cash in country boy will survive, I'll just tell them what they all want to hear, science is voodoo. And instead of, that's just what he said. That's verbatim, these voodoo
Yeah,
words.
and his heroes like Dennis Miller and Norm Macdonald before him were repeating those same lines. He's not saying anything new. He's just repeating what he has heard his heroes say, and albeit in a way better way. Like, I hate Dennis Miller now. I can't stand Bill Maher now. But
Oh,
where they came from was a place of joke writing, like you're saying. If he took 5 minutes to write a good 5 minutes, if he took 5 days to write 5 minutes,
well, think about this premise real quick.
yeah,
100, not even 100, yeah, 100, 200 years ago, science was voodoo. So I'm like, but the premise is right there. You can go off of science is voodoo. I think it makes fun of his crowd more than anything, and that's kind of
of
the problem.
course.
And but it's so funny. And I mean, I just hearing that, I was like, oh, let me rework some of this and talk about like if you travel back in time with a bottle of Tylenol, they think you're a witch and burn you at the stake. They wouldn't understand this magical pill that makes pain go. You know, like there's so much to that dumb thing he said. But again, instead of him working for the craft of comedy and working it out, you know, making it malleable and banging that joke
It
until,
wouldn't be funny to them, though. It wouldn't be funny to them.
but it would be funny.
There's no nuance. There's no nuance. It's the reason that David Cross won't play in Mississippi or in Louisiana. Well, that's not true. New Orleans is different than the rest of Louisiana, but Alabama, you know,
That deep south, below the Bible Belt.
yeah. I mean, that's where blue collar comedy is great, you know, or where it sells, I should say. It's where kind of I mean, if you know Christian comedy or church comedy, as some people call it, like Pete Holmes grew up in that. I don't know if you know that, but Pete Holmes, he knows how silly, like not controversial, not particularly funny Christian comedy is or church comedy is. But there are people who just roll on the floor laughing. I'm not even joking. Like, I've been in churches where people say jokes about Job and David and Jesus. And I mean, one of the dumbest jokes is, why don't you bring a Protestant, or why do you have to bring a Protestant buddy with you to go fishing? Because your Baptist buddy will drink all your beer. That's an actual joke. You don't get it, but the joke is that a Protestant will keep the Baptist guy from stealing your beer because Baptists love to drink. Get it? Now that I've explained it, isn't that hilarious?
Baptists love to drink? Really? Is that like a
Anyway, so anyway, my point being is that relatable comedy is like just the bare minimum that you need to make it funny. If you say random shit like medicine is voodoo and like what's DNA all about and what's with this weather? It's snowing outside. How can there be global warming? Like, it's so dumb and just again, it's not even easy. It's like they know, Dennis Miller knows, Jim Breuer knows, even Joe Rogan knows to a certain extent how dumb some crowds are. But when Joe Rogan plays LA, he is not doing the dumb material. He's doing more sophisticated stuff. He'll talk about talking to Neil deGrasse Tyson. He'll talk about talking to Richard Dawkins, maybe the most famous atheist there is. But he's not doing that shit in the South. And you have to know your crowd. I get it. But if Jim Breuer is trying to come out with a comedy special And he's seeing 12 other people make millions of dollars from doing anti-woke, anti-trans, anti-science, anti-college, like all of that stuff, anti-liberal material. He knows how much he has to dumb it down, because at the end of the day, Jim Breuer's not a dummy. He didn't get on SNL because he was a bad comic when he started. He started in stand-up comedy. Many of those people either
I've
started
seen him in
stand-up,
Boston a bunch of times. I see, like he was. I don't know if he
was
is anymore, but yeah, you got to say was, because this is like you said.
Rob Schneider, same thing. He had a TV
Oh,
show where he's doing this anti-woke, anything that has diversity, anything that has, I mean, again, just think big L liberal. If you make any joke about it, it's funny. Brendan Schaub, Joe Rogan's buddy, tried doing a comedy special, and somebody said his wife said that he was going to make, or she was going to make dessert, and he said, "Oh, is that a cake with salsa on top of it?" I mean, that was an actual joke he
yeah.
tried saying time and time and time and time and time and time again. But he learned from the dumb people. He learned what comedy was from that basic level. He didn't start up here and work his way down. So
Well,
you don't
and
have the
Cat Williams.
fundamentals.
Well,
Sorry.
so no. Cat Williams again. So Cat Williams' interview is at 55 million. But I could be dead wrong because mine is still like paused on when I stop watching it. But I think the reason why it's speaking so much truth and ricocheting through every different platform there is, and he's hit a lot of stuff. Everybody's trying to book him now. He was just on I don't know if you've seen Suge Knight podcast, Collect Call on Breakbeat Media. The guy who created The Source, Dave Mays, has a YouTube channel. Everybody's got a YouTube channel, or everyone should. I firmly believe that every celebrity, everyone should have a YouTube channel. It's a cool medium to be more intimate with these people who have great talent to create content. But the guy who started The Source started doing a podcast with Suge Knight. Obviously, there's been a huge development with Tupac. Keefe D, the car of people who murdered him, new charges. Keefe D is arrested. So in that timing, Suge Knight does these collect calls to, I think it's Dave Mays. Forgive me if I'm wrong. Really, no offense. I was just listening to it earlier, and Suge's just been walking you through Suge Knight's version of history, and he's giving you some great insights to things. I mean, Suge was like Tupac's best friend, in those later years. And
Conflicting stories abound, but
well, and even so let me make my point. And Cat Williams talked about coming up, like you said, and he said before he got to Oakland, I forget where he was, San Francisco or Sacramento, he said, I played big to the white crowd. And he said, and every time I play a black crowd, he said, they didn't get me. And he said, so when I moved to Oakland, I made it my mission to figure out how to speak to the black crowd as a comic. And he said, once I got to like 50-50, I felt okay to go down to LA. And he's just kind of giving you his backstory. But it was real interesting insights to learn that a comic has to learn the crowd just as much as the crowd has to learn, this kind of comedy or whatever they're bringing to this craft. And just like that, again, Cat Williams is talking about stepping up his game. Not pandering to anyone, but developing an art form that speaks. And that's what he was trying to do. He said, I wanted to speak across black, white, whatever, boundary line there was. He said, I wanted to be the comic that could speak to everyone. That's why he was doing it. Not so. And I think everyone can agree. He's way more of a black comic than anything now. But again, he can speak. There's no boundary for him. I think he is talented enough that he is, past the bar of, just being a black comic or exclusively. Sorry.
absolutely, totally.
But with that, that's why Cap became so hot, because he spoke things that were just true. I don't know if Jim Breuer, I think he does a little podcast or a big pod. I mean, look at my thing, very small, 1,000 subscribers. He does a podcast, and I can't imagine him getting those same kind of views off of some kind of truth like that. That's why Cat is still resonating. This is weeks later, this dude is still 2 weeks later, right? And he's now, and that's where I was going to bring it along to. He just, the first guest collect call, whatever you want to call it, on the Suge Knight thing was Suge calling Cat, and they talked the whole time. And it was clearly because Cat Williams is hot right now. If anybody can get him, that's what they're trying to do, and they're going to capitalize on it. And I think this will lead us into kind of the algorithm stuff that I know both of us want to talk about. Fantastic book, fantastic article right now on NPR. We'll get to that in a second. But you could tell that this Cat Williams thing had no substance. Him and Suge, this 10-minute call was not brilliant. There was no insights. It was just kind of to capitalize on the name. But again, even when Cat talks to Suge, there's no BS. It's very honest, whether it's right or wrong. And it cuts through this pandering bullshit that is everywhere. I mean,
Yeah.
Jim Breuer has 1.1 million views on that special. You can't see, I don't have the extension that shows you the thumbs down, but I imagine it's not many, because the algorithm is going to pump it to every single person who is, Googling certain terms, certain words, certain things, because that is explicitly, the worst thing that can happen to comedy right now is this bullshit. Just like Russell Brand. I did a whole 20-minute video. It was originally 40, whole 20-minute video on Brand, going from this vast audience of 5-6 million subscribers, trying to speak to everyone about the class war, essentially, the government versus the people, the wealthy versus the people, to a hyper focused, look at him. He's on Tucker Carlson's channel. He's talking with Alex Jones. He's defending Trump and Vivek Ramaswamy constantly. This is daily. And again, it's poison, because these people get into a feedback loop of only hearing these certain things. They start to believe this is the epitome of comedy, what Jim Breuer is doing, just saying scientist is a voodoo word. I mean, if I said that to you as a joke, this is one of those times where I go, certain people can get away with stuff, like Pete Davidson, right? You watched his special. You told me about his special.
Yes, but time out. I want to go back to one thing you said. You said that you had no doubt that Cat is getting a lot of traction. He has 55 million views or whatever it is because of the truth he says. I think you're about to contradict yourself, because I think that no matter what the controversy is, people are going to look at it regardless. So, for example, do you remember when Eddie Griffin destroyed that Lamborghini Enzo for the movie that he was going to be in?
No idea. I haven't seen an Eddie Griffin
I'll
thing
make
in
this
forever.
I'll make this quick. He was going to be in a movie called Red Zone about driving cars, fast cars. Call it before Fast and the Furious.
Oh,
It
I
was
was gonna
just two
say.
cars though, and anyway, so they spent 26 million, I think, making the movie, and people suspect that during a promo thing that Eddie Griffin got into this Lambo Enzo and purposely crashed it. Nobody talked about anything having to do with the movie forever, and the movie only made $8 million. But it was soon enough before the movie came out that the movie got a lot of press, a lot of free press, from just finding out that Eddie Griffin destroyed this $1.2 million Lambo. And it looked like he kind of pretty much did it. I mean, I don't think he did, but many people say they think he crashed it purposely.
Yeah,
The
of course he did.
Streisand effect, or whatever you want to call it. If he had not crashed the car, people suspect, whether or not it would have made $2 million or $4 million. It happened to make $8.5, somewhere around there, $1 million for a $26 million movie that was a bad movie.
Yeah.
So my point, bringing it back to Cat, people will watch anything if there is controversy or like a cringe factor, or like, oh God, I can't believe he said that, or man, I wonder how Kevin Hart's gonna react. I wonder how Shannon Sharp is gonna react in his next video or whatever. So I don't think it has so much to do with the content, because boy, has the reaction been wild. And from left to right, up and down. People defend him. People, Kevin Hart's talking about suing him now. There's a lot going on with this whole interview. So we'll see what happens in, let's say, give it a year. We'll
But
see
you
what
think,
happens with Kat.
hold on, you really think, because I totally disagree. I don't think I don't think you could put anybody in that spot and just make it controversial. I know what you're talking about. It's that, drive by a car accident. You're not looking ahead. Everybody's looking. That's why everybody slows down, because they're all looking at the car accident. It's the same with look at the rest of our culture. Why do you think they got a Real Housewives of Atlanta, Boston, LA, or I don't know where they got them, but they love the controversy. They love all that. But I think Cat struck a different chord. It wasn't, you can't replicate that. And I think that's why everyone's trying to book Cat and not just come out and say some more controversial stuff. There's controversial stuff all the time on YouTube, and I'm talking about, like, if you go deep down the YouTube creator rabbit hole, there's stuff happening right now. That H Bomber guy plagiarism video I sent you, and I mean, there's a lot, but it doesn't all cut through. It doesn't all. There has to be some. It's just like good comedy. Like when Carlin struck gold on certain bits, talking about get rid of graveyards and golf courses and make room for the homeless. There's such a truth in that comedy that.
And I'm gonna prove my point really easily. You tell me your favorite Cat Williams skit or bit.
Oh, I told you I wasn't a Cat Williams fan.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And most people, either you are in his camp already, or you're like, oh, I can't stand that guy. But there are more people who don't know anything about Cat Williams than there are people who don't know anything about, I said Eddie Griffin before, Kevin Hart, or The Rock, or Ice Cube, or Money, Eddie Smiley.
Smile.
Sorry to disturb you, but
Oh, okay.
There's a lot. So, do you need some? You good?
No, can I run and do something super fast?
Take your earballs out.
Yeah, I was just about to do that. Let me just run super fast. But
I'm going to start with the Filterworld, by the way.
Oh yeah, can you? Because this
I'm going to brief that.
And talk about the book, because this is the other thing that I think correlates to all of this stuff, especially the alt-right comedy world. It becomes this feedback loop, an incessant feedback loop. And even with Cat Williams, I really noticed it, because I told you last week when we talked, I said as soon as I watched that interview, everything in my feed was every reaction from Cat Williams, every new, even the collect call from Suge Knight, it was recommended to me.
Yes.
It's insane at what's happening. I'll be back in 2 minutes.
Okay. So there is a new book by a gentleman who worked for the New Yorker. His name is Kyle Chayka. He had an... What in the hell is happening? Well, I would love to share more, but I doubt you can hear me. Good job, Rob.
Oh, that's okay. You did it the last time. Meowthos is going to change. You know what? I haven't seen Meowthos. Look! He's here! He's in the house. Yeah! He's going to be. And people are saying he's going to be. No, his son!
Oh my God, he's a kid?
Yes! He's like this.
I wonder how much you can hear me, because I could barely hear myself.
No, that is? Yeah!
How did you do that? How do you know all these things?
How do you know? We find these things. And
This is fun. What do I do? What do I do? Do I leave? Do I just... how great would it be just to have me just end it? Just because if I end it, I think the whole thing ends. It's a thought. What do you guys think? Anybody want to make a comment? Should I just like shut it off?
But I don't think it's going to be till next week or the week after. Claire, thank you, honey.
Well, he's a good dad at least.
Oh, that's okay.
Hmm.
Am I connected? All right, there we go.
You are.
Hey, you know what I just realized? Well, right now it looks like you're sitting on
had your
a couch at my thing.
Oh, you had your other earball in. I couldn't hear anything the entire time. It was just.
No, I took them both out.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, because I only ever wear one, so I don't have two.
One was in your pocket. I could hear the entire conversation.
You know what I realized too? Is that color on your thing purple?
Yes.
Yeah, that's cool. Because
well,
look,
it's blue. It's blue. It has a purpley tinge to it.
Oh, I was like, I love the green and purple. I don't think it's a good color scheme. You know what I mean? But I use it a lot in different art that I do. And I just, when I was walking away, I was like, yeah, that's kind of dope. The green.
Oh, I see how it's mixing. That's weird. When you moved, it turned kind of purpley.
Yeah, it looks it looks like Laker purple. But that's why I wanted to ask you if it was blue. Because I'm like, maybe it's blue. And everyone calls me colorblind because there are certain greens I see brown and I don't know. It's weird, but it looks purple to me.
So the entire time you were gone, it was just too much.
That sucks.
I couldn't say anything.
Did you get to mention the book? What is the full title of the book? Filterworld: How Algorithms Are. I thought I wrote it down.
I got it.
You do?
Yeah. So Filterworld: How Algorithms Flatten Culture by Kyle Chayka.
That's such
it looks like that.
Yeah. You don't have the book, do you?
I do not.
Oh, I want to get it, but it's almost $26. Jesus. When did books start costing that much? What is this? Infinite Jest? Give me a break.
No, that was almost $50.
Was it?
Yep.
Oh, we didn't buy it.
You have a copy?
Yeah, but I think on the inside you can see like the library thing on it.
Mine says Bones and Noble.
Hey, speaking of right wing, I just want to bring this up. It doesn't relate, but you know Tommy Loren, right?
Tommy Lauren, yeah.
That little broad who was like living with their parents or on her parents' health care and started complaining.
Yes.
And people pointed out today, I've never seen her tweets, but obviously now that Twitter is X, you just get fed all this bullshit that, you know, you didn't subscribe to, or you didn't follow, but you're going to see it anyways because a certain somebody runs it. So I see one of her tweets where she's complaining. She says, don't use the language of the woke media where they're calling them undocumented migrants or migrants. She says, call them what they are, illegal aliens, you know, crossing the border, all this stuff. So I retweeted it. I said, what if we call them Zionists? I haven't heard anything, but I figured, you know, it's all about the language. George Carlin loved that. I figured the language is so important. Tommy's onto something. Let's just push it a little bit further. So I know that doesn't relate to anything, but it's still swirling around my head. I'm like, there's got to be.
Words don't mean anything anymore. Like
I
said,
they really don't.
Fascist doesn't mean anything. People on the right say fascist. People on the left say fascist. People on the left say communist and socialist. People on the right say communist and socialist. Hitler is everybody.
Everyone.
You saw my video about, like, you know, Obama is Hitler. Trump is Hitler. Everybody is Hitler. Like, it goes back. I've said it a million times. I'll say it one more. When you say Kurt Cobain was a genius, I say if the word genius doesn't mean anything, then everybody's a genius. If you only use it for select people, then it means something.
Which I would say I do. Not everybody's a genius to me. But I also think it's a very it's very indicative
Fascinating.
of our school systems. Because I made a short, basically not the same joke, but saying, like that nothing means anything, that communism bad, socialism bad. I was saying all
Yeah,
these
yeah.
names are bad. And in the comments, one kid was like, I'm in high school and I don't know what any of that means. And I was like, that's my point. That's my
Yep.
point. It's sad. Speaking of Kurt Cobain and Nirvana, we talked about this on the live
Oh,
stream,
yeah.
right?
Go ahead.
That wasn't a
We
personal
haven't
thing.
talked about it.
I didn't bring that up on the
Nope.
live stream. Oh. And I don't know if I don't even think we should mention it then. If I did,
No, say it.
I thought I mentioned it on here. I'm kind of frustrated.
Maybe you mentioned it, but you definitely didn't mention the big surprise at the end.
Oh, okay. So I wrote, I think this was around my birthday or a little before. I wrote Chris Novoselic. He has a website, which I don't have offhand. And it's a
That, for
very,
everybody who doesn't know, that's the bassist from Nirvana. One of our favorite bands growing up, Nirvana.
no, one of my favorite bands to this day. And I was so happy because when I told my daughter about this, she was like, that's my favorite band. I love that. And I was like, yes, I raised good kids. So yes, Chris, the bassist, the one and only. And he has this very, what you would think of a Gen Xer starting a website. It's that kind of website. There's nothing fancy. It almost looks like a WordPress. It was
Mm-hmm.
rad. It was exactly what I wanted Chris Novoselic's website to be. And on it, what's his name? Mossback. It's a PBS show in Seattle, local to Seattle, so it's not national like a Rick Steves. And that was one of his recommendations, who I fell in love with, and I will recommend Mossback to everybody. But I got his PO box on there and wrote him. And originally, when I wanted to write him, it was going to be like a paragraph, like "Thank you for all you've done, including your later work," which he talks about ranked choice voting in Seattle. He's fought to put initiatives on the ballot. He's still an activist. It's just
Yeah.
not, he's not national. He's very local to the Seattle scene. That was my intent until I realized, like, sitting down writing, I'm like, I'm writing Chris Novoselic. This, I don't know if I'm going to keep writing him, but this letter is going to be the letter. I went through my dad's death, my close friends, all these recent deaths, and that I'm an organizer, and just like it got to like page 3, and I was like, oh, my hand's cramping up. I got to wrap this up. And then at the end, I told you, I mentioned the channel, the YouTube channel. I said, if you ever want to come on, I know you're busy, but if you ever want to do live stream, always welcome. Always open door. You got to throw that in if you're writing someone from Nirvana. And I explained what I try to do, because I was asking him, do you think more artists should be activists like Nirvana was? Nirvana was very proactive in, the movements of the early 90s and being a feminist or supporting. He's Czechoslovakian, I think, or he's from the Czech, and they
Czech
did,
Republic, yeah.
yeah, and they did fundraisers for the war that was going on. So I was just thanking him for all that at the end when I wrapped it up. Mailed it off. Never in a million years thought.
Czechoslovakia was a country that existed when we were kids, just
I
for
know.
everyone to know.
As I was saying it, I realized it, and I was like, "That's."
Back then, the USSR was a thing, just for everyone to know.
I still say those things, and then in the back of my mind, go, "Oh yeah, there's new maps. There's new maps." I didn't get.
I just love being this old and then having to say a VCR was a video recording device that we had for anyway.
Anyways, just so everybody's up to date on why we're out of date.
Right.
And so I mailed it off. That's why I was saying, like, I don't know if I mentioned it on here, but I know I told you, because I tell certain people certain things. Not everyone, because usually they're like, "What are you, nuts?" I'm like, no. Even a friend at my work, They were like, "What are you, crazy?" And I was like, "No, I just when I have something heavy on me, I want, like I was like, I just want to write them. It's not about getting a response. It's not about
Yeah,
anything
yeah,
else
yeah.
than like I always told myself, if I met Dave Grohl, I just really wanted to thank him because when the In Your Honor double album came out, it was a month before my dad passed away. And that next year, that's all I listened to. Um, and it had such a profound impact on getting me through that time. Like I had this soundtrack to rely on that through whatever emotional highs and lows. So it wasn't about any response. It was just saying, like, thank you. You created art that I needed to just survive. And it's the same thing with Chris. It was like I just wanted to really do like this, I hate to say love letter, but like this, like, thank you. You've had such a profound impact on the things you've brought into this world. And then what was it, 2 days ago? I get home, shitty day, you know, it's like 9 degrees here, got no heat. I'm like, God, what the is the point of this? What am I pushing on for? And I pull out of my mailbox. I still got to get a frame for it. I see this. And I'm like, listen, I get a lot of like weird, like do your roof with solar panel mail, but this is not
Mm-hmm.
that. I was like,
No,
I know who this is. This is Chris
that, that's a
Novoselic.
20. That's a 24-year-old playing bass.
Look at those pants. If that doesn't scream late 80s, early 90s, nothing does.
Mm-mm.
Now, kids, do you understand why these guys are trendsetters? Look at that. Awesome. And I didn't know he played bass with a pick, which you can see, which is cool. Um, and then I'm just going to cover up my side. And then I see that he wrote back.
Dear Rob, comedy activism, satire, love it. I loved it. I love it. Yes, I
I
love
love
it.
it.
Rock
Yeah.
on, Christ. Pretty
And
cool.
I'm telling you, that made my year. 2024 cannot go wrong no matter what happens. Because not in a million years did I was never expecting that on January whatever day it came in. And
Pretty cool.
that was phenomenal. And just
Do
the
you know what
fact
would
that,
have been cooler if you
what?
got a postcard from Kurt? That would have been nice. Might have
From
been
like
messed up handwriting, but that would have
from
been cool.
from one of those islands in Fiji, the Fiji Islands, with a
Hey
return.
Robbie, don't tell anyone. The whole thing was a conspiracy.
Tupac's fine. We're having a ball here on the beach.
We're only letting you know because no one will believe you.
You know, you know what the funniest thing about that is that that's what Jim Breuer is doing to everybody.
Oh my god.
That's exactly what he's doing to these people. He's like, listen, between us, science is just voodoo, right? What is this, 2023? We know better. Bloodletting and leeches. It's like this
And
is
JFK Jr. is coming back, and his dad's coming back, and he's actually going to take over the presidency. And where are we going to meet him? We're going to meet him in Dallas because that's where he wants to go. Just like when Jesus shows up, he's going to appear on the cross because what else are you going to do? Go back
hey,
to the scene of the crime, am I right?
is I never thought about that, but the RFK crowd, are they crossed over with the QAnon like
Oh,
JFK or
yeah. Oh, yeah.
how does that guy sleep at night?
I mean, very specifically, the Q people believed that JFK Jr. initially had never died and was coming back to help Donald Trump. But then some other of those people, a subset of those people, said that JFK himself was coming back and he was going to appear in Dallas.
Yeah,
And
that's
this
the one I heard.
a black SUV or a black Cadillac comes by with tinted windows and it drives by. It's just a random fucking car. It's just a random car. And people are like, oh my God, I have chills. I know he's in there. I know it's actually him. He's letting us know. And Q said that there would be a black car with tinted windows.
I
I'm
don't
not
know.
shitting you. That's a
No,
real
no, no.
thing. So
I know
there's
that
some
that's
overlap between that and RFK Jr. Yeah. So
But how? I guess at the end of the day, it's about the money. You know, these people can get milked for money because if people believe that, they'll and you tell them like, hey, I'm gonna help make that happen. I'm gonna bring my uncle back or whatever he's gonna say. You know, my great aunt. I don't know the family relations, but he's like, you got to buy my T-shirts. I need donations. People will throw their life savings. It's like Joel Osteen, where he's like, listen, this church ain't big enough, and if you want God to bless you, send me your dough, and they do. Sad. All right, let's talk about this algorithm thing because this is fat. So you listen is an NPR interview. I read the transcript, and it starts off with this Kyle Chayka.
Shikra,
Yeah,
I think.
Kyle talks about this is very fascinating, and I don't understand how a human would allow this into their home. But the Amazon Echo Look. Did you know this existed?
Yes.
Okay, I had no idea. So for those of you who know about the Amazon Echo, which is just a device you could speak to, hey, what's the weather? Siri or what is it called? Alexa. That's it. Sorry.
Alexa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a demented world we live in. And it would talk back to you. The kids love it because, well, actually, I disconnected all of ours. We got them as a gift, and I was like, nah, Jeff Bezos ain't listening in my home. They're all hidden somewhere, unplugged, not plugged in.
I don't think you understand how. I don't think you understand how meta this podcast gets sometimes. But go ahead.
So this Amazon Echo Look, you set up, it has a camera, and you can stand in front of it. It will tell you a percentage. I think the point of the Echo is to like enhance your style or give you recommendations, but you would dress in front of it. The camera would say like you were 75% stylish. And the person who wrote this article or wrote this book and was talking about this said like they had no rhyme or reason. It was just literally AI saying like, oh, based on the collection of world data up till 2021, you are kind of stylish. It was a really weird dystopian thing I don't know what to call it because it blends everything. It blends like all of the internet, AI, real life, integrated, what is it? Augmented reality, not even virtual reality. It's fucking weird. So when I heard about that, I was like, oh, I'm paying attention. And then they go on to go more into depth about why it's recommending these stuff, how it's just this big feedback look, and how it kind of flattens life out. It dulls our tastes for fine culture. Sipping wine, I don't sip wine, but does it have legs? It's got fruity legs. That's something wine tasters say, right?
Yes, that's my understanding.
These are nutty legs. we should do a parrot. That's the next video you should do. What wine taster videos sound like to everybody else. I don't know if they do wine taster videos. You could just say like this robust fruity nut leg smells like that'd be a good video. That'd be a good one.
Okay. I'm gonna get to this algorithm thing there,
All
Robbie.
right, I just think that's a great video.
This is the best line of this NPR thing. So this gentleman's being interviewed on NPR, and he talks about his book. He talks about his research, and basically the idea just being that the algorithms that exist in so many different cases, the most interesting of which is Netflix to me, but the algorithm exists in many different ways. But one of the things that he says, for us consumers, they're making us more passive by just feeding us so much stuff, by constantly recommending things that we are unlikely to click away from, that we're going to tolerate, but not find too surprising or challenging. The best example of this is he found out that on Netflix, and they set up 4 accounts for Netflix. So Persona A only watches sports stuff. Persona B only watches documentaries, and Person C only watches rom-coms. And then they made a 4th one that just watches everything. So what they found was that the Netflix algorithm would, if you're the sports person, they would recommend a rom-com, but the thumbnail that you would see would just have the one scene in the movie where they're playing sports. Or for the rom-com person, they would take a sports movie and take the one still of the two main characters kissing, and that would be your thumbnail. So they were trying to direct you to things that had nothing to do with your tastes that you might want to look at based on just a visual contact of, oh, two people kissing, that must be a rom-com. And it turns out it's a sports movie. So kind of it seems like a misdirect, or it seems counterintuitive is the word I'm looking for, that would broaden your horizons, but actually what you are seeing is flattening the curve. There is no interest, there is no creativity. So, like we were saying about Cat Williams, YouTube will say, oh, you watched one YouTube video about Cat Williams and you watched it for 50 minutes. Now the next 200 things I'm going to show you, 150 of them are going to be of Cat Williams or something having to do with the hashtags that are associated with that, the runtime that is associated with that. It is not helping you broaden your
The
horizons.
thumbnail. Hold on.
It
What?
is helping you regurgitate over and over and over what they think you want to watch, so that you're never pleased with anything, but you're never ever displeased with anything, because there's just a nugget in the algorithm that you might like, that you will tell yourself, oh, I actually like this.
Well, and you know what got me what you're explaining about Netflix too is that's the definition of clickbait. That is what when I really started diving into how to become a YouTuber, and there's plenty of channels where you can learn this stuff. What it boiled down to me, how to become a YouTuber, was this. You judge a book by its cover. That's all of YouTube. That's as simple as it is. If you can have
Yep.
the most clickbaity thumbnail, if they just click on it, that immediate, I don't know how many recommendations, I don't know how much of a reach you'll get, but just that pushing of the video does wonder. I mean, it makes careers, and that's no joke. And I've talked to many other people who that was like the thing, the best advice they would give is like thumbnail, work on your thumb, get your thumbnail, look at your thumbnail. And it's not even about being unique. This is the other very disappointing part about clickbait and learning that all of the internet has essentially become judge a book by its cover. Judge
Yep.
it. Judge its entirety.
We beg you to judge it. Yes.
And the worst part about it is you keep going down that rabbit hole, like, well, okay, what if I make the most unique, never before seen? That you get punished for. And specifically, a lot of people would always reference, and this is where my disdain for Mr. Beast came in, because they would always make his the shiny thumbnail up on the hill that all should glory and hail, and that was always what you had to compare to. And I thought, well, nothing I make should be like, you know what I mean? Like he just did a video, $1 car versus $1 million car, and of course everything looks the same. It's his face a little, saturated and elongated and bigger than everything else, and a weird expression, and then in the background, two cars. It's so generic. It's like you were saying, it flattens your taste. It flattens your ability to actually judge if anything's good or not, because you're just kind of seeing the same thing in a different shade of color.
And here's the very interesting thing about that. I mentioned Netflix for a reason. I mentioned YouTube for a reason. But this is where it gets really pernicious. And this is what this guy's book is about. So he traveled 50 countries in a year, or 50 cities in a year. Okay.
Yeah.
And he stopped in 3 types of places. So because he's a travel writer, and he was a travel writer for the New Yorker, he would always know that he could get a job bartending, or that he could get a job being a barista in some hipster coffee shop. And again, I use this word too much, but meta analysis of this is he could type in hipster coffee shop in any city he lived in, and he would find 50 hipster coffee shops in Berlin, in Copenhagen, in Paris, in Maldives, in
Tokyo,
Athens, Tokyo, everywhere, right? And he said all of them had the exact same pottery, They all had the same refurbished wood from pallets. They all had the same types of lettering on their menu. They all had the same chalkboard menu. They all had the same cups. And he said, that's why this algorithm is so pernicious, because these people don't have a shot to win unless they look like something that is successful. So they type in Tokyo, what should my coffee shop look like? And they say, oh, it should look like this one in Portland, Oregon, where it's these plants, it's this lettering, it's this font. This is what the name of the place is. That is basically something, inoffensive, but mystical, or really retro. So that was one thing that he noticed. He also noticed that every Airbnb, because the New Yorker would always put up in either an Airbnb or a hotel. He said every hotel looked the same. Every joint that I went to that was Italian, like to be authentically Italian, it had to look like an American Italian restaurant. It could not look like an actual Italian restaurant.
Yeah.
But if it wanted to look Greek, it had to look actually Greek. If it wanted to look Mexican, guess what it had to look like? An American Mexican restaurant. If it was
colors.
If it was to look like Australian was apparently kind of the one that got away from people, because they're like, what is in Australia? What's authentically Australian?
A Queensland house.
Yeah. I mean, there are a million ideas or whatever, but he said the same hipster coffee shop, the same Airbnbs, the same requests of Airbnb hosts. The hotels would have you do the same thing, because we are not successful anywhere in the world unless we say this is the gold standard, the Mr. Beast standard, the Holiday Inn standard, the Italian Mamma Mia restaurant, whatever it is. We don't see anything as vivacious. We don't see anything as creative unless it looks exactly like something else that we know and can trust. A Yogi Bearism, yogiism is what they used to say. He would say, oh, that club, that restaurant, I don't go there anymore, it's too crowded. Or nobody goes there anymore, it's too crowded. Like, that thought actually exists in people's head. I don't want to go to that restaurant because it's so busy. That doesn't exist anymore. Now people only want to go to a restaurant that is super busy. My wife and my friends, they'll say, oh, it's not really good to go in a place where there aren't a lot of people, because they probably have sanitary issues, or they don't cook their food as well, or what have you. Yeah. So this societal chemistry pushed in with the algorithm in so many different ways is flattening our creativity. It is flattening our travel patterns. Other countries know that. Other countries know this. Iceland was like, people are taking all our wool sweaters. We gotta get more sheep. And they're like, farmers are like, how are we going to get more sheep? I've had these, 12 sheep and their offspring for 20 years, or whatever the case is. Well, you need more things. So Iceland, as kind of a country, said, no, we're not doing this. We'll get some better roads so people can come here. But you know what? I think we're fine the way we are. Nordic countries like that tend to do that. Countries that are money driven tend not to do that. So China, very money driven, and have been since the 80s. America, very money driven, especially since the 80s, if not obviously before. But this marketability is, you are in this band, and if you do anything outside of this band, you're messing up. And if you do anything outside on this side of the band, you're messing up. But some of the most successful things, this guy says in his book and in this conversation that he had, is take a chance. Because you're not going to have a genius, as we like to say. You're not going to have something that tickles your fancy until you're like, oh, that's different. It may not be that you're super wowed by things, but then you grow into loving them.
Well,
But people aren't trying anything because we keep saying, I have to be successful. I have to compare, not contrast myself, not be inventive, because inventive doesn't make money and it doesn't draw people in.
well, and it
That's
ruins,
basically it.
but it ruins your, just like the pandering that we talked about at the beginning with Jim Breuer, it ruins creativity. Once
It's
you start,
placating.
well, once you start to train, and I'm speaking from experience, when I started in all these, not only people, but I reached out to some big YouTubers who were like, yeah, 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 that's good advice, to like see what the big ones are doing. And I could never really relate to what some of them were doing, but I followed in the
Yeah.
footsteps because you want to mimic that success to try to recreate your own. But it just never felt like me. And still, I have a hard time figuring out what this channel is. But you'll see it's some of my paranormal videos, it's me going, and just replicating what every other paranormal channel does, like a scared face with some weird background. But it just never felt genuine. I was trying to do it to get into the algorithm, to get into the rhythm. But then once you do that enough, it becomes your thing. And your
You're
thing,
chasing the game.
and everything before you is doing the same thing, and everything after you. And that's, I hate to do this, but I'm gonna. That's what stands out to me about Nirvana and Chris Novoselic. I've
Oh,
mentioned
okay.
this quote from Chris before. He says, "You have to remember, Nirvana never went to the mainstream. This is what was so powerful about them." He said the mainstream came to Nirvana, and that really set them apart. They were doing something nobody had really heard at the time. There were other bands like them, but not in the pop grunge genre that Kurt, existed in. It was
That'll
very
annoy some people. Anybody who's a fan of the Melvins or the Descendants or whatever. Some people might have a
it
Black
just
Flag would be
no,
another one. Meat Puppets. I got
yeah, but
others.
again, they didn't have the John Lennon Beatles-esque um music. I don't know what you would call it. Like that.
Je ne sais quoi.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Nirvana had that, you know.
Yeah.
The Melvins, the I mean, Henry Rollins screaming like angry poetry wasn't,
I
captivating for the
loved
masses.
me. I loved me some Rollins. Oh my God,
No,
I
I
loved
know,
me
but
some Rollins.
my wife does. Like, I get it, but you guys
Even
are
Ghost Rider. Do you remember Ghost Rider when he did that?
no,
Ghost Rider,
no.
motorcycle hero. Anyway,
You're making my point. I mean, there's a small group of you. We're not even small, but you guys are diehards, and it's your thing. Kurt could do that with the cult of personality that had the following, but he also could do it for the masses. So there was something special with that, and that's why the mainstream went to him. That's why we got bands after like Bush, like Silverchair from Australia. Like
social distortion.
that's
I
how.
say. I say.
But seriously, I mean,
Yeah.
if you watch any documentary, they talk about like after Nirvana exploded, they were in Seattle going like just fishing for every bit,
Oh
whatever
yeah, of
all out,
course. Yeah.
and they were like, how do we duplicate this? How do we replicate it? Can you still? And it's funny because this was pre YouTube, pre internet,
Oh
and,
yeah.
and now you see the internet doing the same thing. Oh, Mr. Beast is big. Everybody's got to do exactly what Mr. Beast does, and you're like, I years ago when I really, really got into this, again, I'm going to keep talking about that moment because you would hear people say the algorithm's against me. It's stacked against me. It doesn't favor small creators. And these big creators would always be like, your content's just not good. And I would go and watch these people, or I would be creating my own. And I'd go, listen, I know it's not perfect, but it's not horrible. And I always defended these people who would say the algorithm is against me. And I'd say it is. It truly is, because anybody that I was getting advice from was saying, like, do Mr. Beast stuff. And I was like, how? I don't do Mr. Beast. Like, how am I
Yeah.
supposed to make a thumbnail for my content with his $1 versus $1 million, with his stranded on a, island that, and it just seemed insane, but that's really what it's become. Like that's the sad thing is about that Echo Amazon look or whatever the fuck it's called, is when he was saying, what is this style based on? It gave you no reasoning. And
No.
style is one of those like really abstract things that's almost like AI couldn't do it besides like color paletting. You know what I mean? It's like there are certain sciences to, like, even I was mentioning earlier, the color palette here. Like one of my favorite YouTubers, Nerd City, I screenshotted one of his videos because he went through the science of like color palettes on backgrounds for these what are those images, the virtual images, like the Dead Monkeys Club or whatever it is.
Oh, yeah,
NTS,
NFTs,
NFTs. So
non-fungible tokens.
he did this whole color palette on like what worked best if the character was this color. I thought it was so fascinating because there is a science to it. That's why McDonald's is the color as it is. That's why Taco Bell, Starbucks. So there really is some science to like human interaction with colors. But outside of that, fashion is such a, like loose. Look at Chris Novoselic again. These guys were wearing thrift store things. Kurt talks about this. He would shop at the thrift store, and if he found something awesome, it was a score for that week.
Do you know what's big now? Thrift store shopping.
Do you know what I was reading the other day? So we almost solely do thrift store shopping. There's a place called Savers right around the corner, and we donate there, and you get a 20% off, and then we go shop for a bunch of stuff. And all the prices we noted, even with the thrift store, and they don't donate it. When I went to get a job there and they offered me some work, they were like, listen, we're not a charity. Like, this is a for-profit place. But all the prices have like crept up to the point where my wife is like, we should just go to Walmart or, another place that claims to have cheap clothes because it's now the same price. And the reason is because it just became popular, again, trendy for the Kim Kardashians, for all these influencers to say they go thrift store shopping. And now,
thanks a lot, Macklemore.
Right? With his thrift shop viral hit. The other thing that this article made me think of is the Spotify year-end wrap-up. Now, I don't get one.
I love that. I love it. I'm not gonna lie. I got it, and it's like,
what was your number one?
This is how many. What was my number one? I want to say it was. It was probably either Pussifer or God, Eat the Elephant. What was Maynard James Keenan's other band? A Perfect Circle.
Perfect. I was like a circle. A circle of perfect.
It was either that or it might have been the Black Angels. I like the Black Angels a lot. God, now I want to bring it up just to look at it.
Yeah,
my top songs
is a dick, right?
Oh, Dave Matthews. What?
He's a dick, right? He's a well-known.
I know that he hates his fame. I met him in person once.
Did you say fame or fans? I couldn't hear you because I think you mean fans.
Oh, he hates his fans too, but I think.
Okay.
I mean, he's just I don't know how to explain it. I mean, he appreciates artists. I've seen plenty of interviews. I've seen him. I mean, he doesn't do interviews with big names. Like Vice came at him and he was like, I'm not doing it with this guy. And then they were like, okay, what about this guy? And he was like, no, I want that kid. And they're like, that kid? He's like in our mailroom. And he's like, yeah, I want him. So him or no one. And
hey, listen,
like, okay.
That's good to hear. Because when our radio station sent the girl that I worked with, the co-host, who was like the biggest fan, of all of his bands, all of his groups, all of his stuff, he was promoting his wine. She went to interview him.
That's what I did. That's where I met him, at a wine signing ceremony with him and the wine producer, the farmer, his buddy.
Yeah.
I had a whole thing prepared, and like my wife went ahead of me, only one person at a time. And I can hear her on the other side of the wine racks. And she's like, oh, my husband's a huge fan of yours. Like, he loves Tool. He always has. He thinks you're a great poet and like all this stuff. So I come around the corner, and I've been planning for an hour, waiting in line, what I'm going to say. And I'm like, thank you very much for this opportunity. I appreciate everything you do for art. I need to say thank you so much for the music. So I said thank you 3 times in that way. And I'm repeating it over and over and over. And I come around the corner, and he slunk back like this, looking away. But the guy who has the wine bottles, who's going to sign it, he's like, how are you? And I was like, great. And I walked away.
No.
Oh, that's it. No, I was like,
But wait, did
I just
Maynard finally look at you, shake your hands?
nope.
And
No, he was like
what a
this the whole
dick!
time.
This is what I'm talking about. I'm
So
not
he
a
was
fan
like
of
that.
his, but
The winemaker was like, "How's it going?" And I was like, "Great." And they handed me the bottle, and I walked away.
that is.
Anyway,
Listen,
I
I'm
don't
not.
think he's a dick.
No, I know
So
you
I'm gonna say,
don't
wait.
because
I'm gonna do
no.
two more things.
We're gonna hold on. I need to pause right on that because do you think I want you to write him a letter and I want to see if he sends you a Chris Novoselic postcard back. This is what I hate because these
His
people.
fans are nut jobs. He's
You're
not gonna
not a
answer
nut.
my shit.
You're
I
not
know
a
I'm
nut.
not a nut job.
But you went to buy his wine and he didn't have the decency to look at you. This is what I'm not going to go off on a tangent, but that confirms. You can say he's whatever, a great artist, but and I understand the eccentrics are weird, but fuck him and fuck Kanye West.
That was about 17, 18 years ago that wine, Caudacious Winery or Caudacious Cellars came out. Yeah, Dave Matthews was my number one. Number two
What's your favorite song? Yes,
was
Martin?
Virginia in the Rain is
Oh,
probably my favorite.
okay.
Or Warehouse. Warehouse is amazing. But what
Damn.
else? Oh, Brian
Damn,
Jonestown
damn.
Massacre. I listened to it a lot
Okay.
last year. Wax Taylor. Do you know who Wax Taylor is?
No.
Wax Taylor's great.
Any relation to Surf Wax?
No.
Dad joke. Dad joke.
Dad joke. Fever Ray. I had a lot of Fever Ray. Fever Ray is them there.
Are they like Sugar Ray?
Amazing artists. No, you're doing poorly. Tom York from Radiohead had a lot of his
What does
stuff.
he have? He has independent stuff? I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, my favorite song is Black Swan. Check it out sometime. Tom York, Black Swan, great song.
Great movie.
K-Flay, also a lot of soundtracks. So like Bella Ciao was big when the TV show Money Heist came out, Spanish show. Just recently, December 26th, I think, Berlin came out, which was kind of a prequel to it. And there are 3 songs that came out of that I'm like, so those are good.
Jesus Christ.
I was listening to some old Peter Gabriel, Joe Bonamassa, David Bowie, Big Data, Korn, Nelly Furtado, don't give me shit. 9 Inch Nails, duh. One of my favorites is Lemon Jelly. Have you ever heard of Lemon Jelly?
No. But again, my playlist, I don't have a Spotify thing, but it would be so different. And it's so fascinating to me that like your reaction is not exclusive to you. Like this is, if you talk to anybody around that time of year, whenever they release it, like December or end of November, this is
Who are you
like
talking about?
when Spotify releases this,
Oh, yes.
this playlist, this is everyone's reaction. Like everyone wants to break out their end of the year thing and like compare
I
notes
love it.
and brag about. It's such a weird thing.
It's not
and
a
again,
brag.
but
It's not a brag. It's like, oh man, I listened to this thing 192 times. That's crazy. I can't believe I listened to that song that much or whatever.
Isn't that crazy? That's my whole point. How much of that is truly you? And I bring this up because working in radio, so you got to understand, a long time ago, radio used to have different jobs. Now one person does all of them, but they used to have this job called music director, and that music director would get the local music, national music, new debuts,
requests, and all of that, and set it up. I know.
and set up the music log. And a lot of the time, it was dictated by their bias, and I hated it because they were all usually some kind of pretentious, like I know a little more about music. That's how I got this job. Dickheads. And if you're watching this and I worked with you, sorry. I didn't
I
say
would argue that has not changed in 50 years, though. I mean, I would argue
job
that
doesn't
since
exist. That job doesn't.
What are you talking about? Yeah, it does. It still exists.
I'm telling you, as an active seeker of a job in radio, every job that still has music director title, it is not a solo job. You were doing an on-air shift.
Maybe
I
I was just going to say maybe it is. Maybe it isn't at some places. Maybe it's not in L.A. Maybe it's not in Boston. Maybe it's not in Chicago. But I am sure there are still people all over the country who are saying, you know what, I'm going to set it up. Because
no.
those same
There are
bookers
people that use. The program is called Music Master, I forget, and it's just all automatically scheduled, and a lot of this stuff is just based on, an algorithm that says these are the most popular songs. We're just going to play those. It used to be more of a hand-picked, kind of hand-selected, like fine wine. It was like, well, this is
The
something new.
result is the same, though. The result is the same. Since the
Well,
70s, the same 40 songs have played for the same 40 hours in
yep.
a given, week or whatever, and that's just the way it is.
But when it was more human driven and there was money to go around so you could have somebody at that position, and I'm speaking from experience. So when I moved back to Boston from Hawaii, I brought this CD. My buddy went to high school with these guys in a band called Pepper. Pepper sounded like Sublime, but a Hawaiian version, and they were, I don't want to say better, but they were really good. And I brought that CD. I was interning at WBCN, an epic, legendary alt rock station here in Boston, helped with the counterculture movement. It's now defunct. Like all other rock and alternative stations in Boston. But at the time, I brought it to the music director, and I said, "Check out this band. They're phenomenal." And within 2 years, that band was touring in Boston, and I went to see them. And do you think that would have ever happened if it was just based on, again, somebody's taste and what the national thing dictated? These guys were not getting radio play outside of Hawaii. They were not really known. And that was the beautiful thing outside of like a Spotify. And outside of like a recommended playlist of like, hey, if you like ants marching, you'll love Peter Gabriel. And it's all almost like a spider web, connected. It's not really outside of your like Child Bella stuff, that's obviously like human, organically selected. But it would be fascinating to me. This is what I would like to do with this study, because we are scientists, we are voodoo magicians, to find out how much of your playlist was recommended versus how much, you went in and sought after.
I
Yes,
have an answer.
in the front. You do?
I have about 4 playlists that I made for myself. So I have one specifically of a chronology. This is a fun little tip for anybody wanting an anniversary gift. I put a chronological listing of songs that my wife and I both enjoyed for our 6th anniversary. I put it on a little wooden tape because 6-year anniversary is a wood anniversary gift. And then on the back, there's
such a weird capitalist thing.
What?
Sorry. The wood thing, like the diamond, paper, wood. That's such a weird capitalist thing.
Whatever. A part of me is a huge romantic. So
I
anyway,
get it.
I put that all on a playlist, basically from the first time we met to like right before the anniversary, and I put it all in a chronological list, and that list morphed into a longer list because we keep adding to it. And then I have my own personal lists, like I have a metal list. I have a Dave only list because it's like the Beatles. You can just add on to it forever. It could take up 15 hours. Pearl
But
Jam
it's
has
only
another one.
curated by you, like you're the only one populating that.
Yeah, or my wife or whatever. But yeah, I don't generally listen to random playlists um, on Spotify. Every now, I mean, I can't tell you how often I will be like, Siri, who's playing this song in a store or in a restaurant, and I'm like, ooh, I like that. What's that? And then I look for more of that. Or every now and then I'll put on an electronica playlist, or I'll put on a blues funk playlist, and I'll listen to that. And if I like something, I'll add it to that. I'll add it to one of my other lists. So my stuff is curated. I go to a lot of concerts too, so every now and then I'll see a band. Butcher Babies was a band that I saw this last summer that I was like, oh, I would listen to their stuff. The rest of the band, I saw Guar. I've known of Guar since 1985 or whatever, and they're 70 years old. No, that was the wrong band. That was Green Jello or Green Jelly.
Green Jelly. Sorry.
Bill Manspeaker is from Green. Yeah, that was totally different. Same idea though. They still have the costumes and the puppet. I get why you messed that up, but anyway, no, my playlist is what I make it, and I love certain soundtracks and I love certain things. Very rarely do I hear anything on the radio. Then I'm like, wow, that's a new song. But I
It
will
doesn't
tell
matter.
you one that I did hear. The first time I heard Sail by AWOL Nation, I was like,
Oh,
is that Marilyn Manson's new song? I thought it was a Marilyn Manson song because he had that like guttural screaming thing. And I was like, I don't know what this song is, but I love it. The first time I heard Muse's Madness, I was like, did Prince write a new song? Like, that's how it hit my ear. So then I got into Muse and I was like, oh, they're really ridiculously talented. Um, so
but
I,
you
I, I try and
acknowledge,
branch out.
but you acknowledge that a good swath of people throw on
Swarth.
like a station, if that's what it's called. I don't have Spotify again, but they throw on a station where it's like the artist they like, and then it recommends a bunch of stuff, so they're dependent on this like recommendation that is like a 6 degrees from Kevin Bacon style of feeding you content, which is the same as
Sure.
YouTube, which is the same as it's almost, it reminds me of like remember back in the TV watching days where it would be like, coming up after this, and it would show in the corner, like, Full House or whatever. And it was just recommended while you were watching a show, it's recommending a kind of similar show that, that corporate media thought, because if you're watching this, you're going to like that. Now watch it and watch the commercials. And it's all kind of similarly
Yes.
like that, but now it's much more heavily dependent on it, because our phone is essentially everything for us, because people talk about how, or I don't want to say they talk about, but there's a heavy reliance on like AI knows all, where AI now
Mm-hmm.
has to like specify, hey, we're wrong, like we only have this much knowledge and we don't have the human nuance of certain situations. And like when I first got on AI, I just wanted to debate it on Jesus. And I spent like
Yeah.
20 minutes like seeing how much it could go far along this philosophical religical. I like that word. Let's add
That's
that
good.
to Webster's. He goes, that's good. Thank you, because you
We got to
usually,
wrap it up, Robbie.
yeah, we do. Listen, let's finish this dialogue next time, because this is so fascinating and I want to read this book. I'm dying to get this book. I'm gonna figure out a way. When I get paid tomorrow, which I only make $5 an hour, so I'd have to work 5 hours to fucking buy this book. That's how I do my math.
Do it. Do it. I dare you.
And then, oh, it's a dare, is it? So, but let's continue this
I
conversation.
double dog dare you.
And the other thing is, I'm not done with Jim Breuer. I told you, I don't think I talked about on here. I
Please
wanted
be
to
done
make,
with him. Just please be done with him.
well, I wanted to do a video on him, like a video
Oh,
on like,
good. Just not with me.
okay, check it out. I'm telling you. I'm telling you. And by the way, do the video on what, because you're doing those great videos, like what guitar pedal videos sound like
Oh,
to.
yeah.
So do one, what would you call it? Like what wine tasters sound like to the rest of us.
Oh, that's
That's what I
good.
was saying earlier. I couldn't phrase it right
Hey, I
because
didn't get it. No, that's good. I like
I
that.
was trying
Okay.
to think of like funny, because when I lived in California, there were vineyards everywhere. So I'd go on these wine tasting. I was like, why am I here? And I'd just be like,
No,
oh,
that's good.
these are some nutty legs. This thing is a robust tundra of nutty grapes or whatever.
I'm getting chocolate. I'm getting molasses. I'm getting whale blubber.
I'm getting
Yes.
a
Anyway, I gotta
hint of
go. I
taint.
gotta go, Robbie.
I'll see you later.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye. Well, now that he's gone, let's get into the science of Jim Breuer. I'm just kidding. I'm going to go. I don't know who's still here. I did want to check one thing. How do I see the comments? I don't think there were any comments. If you're watching, can you leave a comment? Because I want to see if they pop up or if I got to see something. Oh, well. I got to figure this live stream thing out. All right. Thanks for watching. If you did watch this, not live, but whenever, if the algorithm feeds this to you, if I did a thumbnail good enough, please subscribe. I can't figure out why people watch my content and then don't subscribe. It's free. It's a little button right over here, I believe, and all you got to do is press it, and then I don't know, magic happens, voodoo, science. And then go check out Brendan's YouTube channel. Oh my god, I'm forgetting, Ample Thought. And that's all. So now we just sit and wait. This feels like an early Mr. Beast video. I think this is what he did. He like counted backwards from 1 million or something, and now he makes videos called the $1 car versus $1 million car. Which, by the way, Mr. Beast, where the fuck you getting a $1 car from? Calling bullshit. I ain't gonna watch your video, even though it's being fed to me everywhere I look because you paid a lot of money to advertise for it. But nobody can get a $1 car. You just can't. That's a lie. Just like Mr. Beast, when you said subscribe for a cookie, I subscribed. Yet to get a cookie. I'm hungry, buddy. Send me that cookie. When are you going to give it up? And you got like 100 million subscribers. You owe a lot of people cookies. And you might be looking at a class action lawsuit, buddy, unless you start editing those videos and stop promising cookies to everybody. I think that's it. Yeah, we're at an hour and a half. Thanks for watching. Hit subscribe. Peace and power to the people.